Good afternoon on a warm, bright and sunny day. It is Wednesday, the 13th of September. I'm in the reading nook. I've got a nice little cup of tea. And also continue unboxing. And what I have in here is a copy of France on Trial, The Case of Marshal Pétain by Julian Jackson. So, let me see. Few images more shocked the French population during the occupation. The photograph of Marshal Philippe Pétain, the great French hero of the First World War, shaking the hand of Hitler on 20th of October 1940. In a radio speech after this meeting, Pétain told the French people that he was entering down the road of collaboration. He ended with the words, "This is my policy. My ministers are responsible to me. It is I alone who will be judged by history." 5 years later, on July 1945, the hour of judgment, if not yet the judgment of history, arrived. Pétain was brought before a specially created High Court to answer for his conduct between the signing of the armistice with Germany in June 1940 and the liberation of France in August 1944. Julian Jackson uses Pétain's 3-week trial as a lens through which to examine the central crisis of 20th century French history, the defeat of 1940, the signing of the armistice, and Vichy's policy of collaboration, what the main prosecutor Mornay called 4 years to erase from our history. As the head of Vichy regime, Pétain became one of France's most notorious public figures and the lightning rod for collective guilt and retribution immediately after the Second World War. In France on Trial, Jackson blends politics and personal drama to explore how different national factions sought to try to claim the past or establish their interpretation of it as a way of claiming the present and future. So, the thing is, I actually don't know a huge amount about French history, and that's despite the fact that, France is our nearest geographical neighbour, just 22 miles across the English Channel. Now, I have studied some French history as it pertains, of course, to Britain. But that was, again, we are talking 30 years ago, well, 40 years ago, I suppose now, when I was at school. So I would have looked at things like the Treaty of Versailles. It's essentially how Europe was divided and organised following the Napoleonic Wars, the fall of Napoleon, the establishment of France as a new government under I think basically King Charles and King Louis. I can't remember their regnal numbers offhand, leading up to the first French Republic of sort of the revolutions of 1830, revolutions of 1848. And the unification of Germany and defeat of France and its consequences in 1871 at the hands of Bismarck, and then Clemenceau's foreign policy, and all studied at A level. So it's actually, what I did was I took a sort of an advanced history course in modern European history, and of course, sort of like the run-up to the First World War, and creation of the Triple Alliance and Entente Cordiale and that sort of thing. So, but the specifics, not at all really. You kind of dodge around it a bit in role-playing books, especially if you're doing the Musketeers period or things like that. But this then is essentially something I picked up on a whim. I thought that looked interesting. I'm going to try and find time to read it. Yeah, I know what you're going to say, given the number of books that I do read. But here we start off with a list of all dramatis personae, basically the members, persons involved, starting with Marshal Philippe Pétain, the prosecution, the judge, the jurors, witnesses for the prosecution. So it's quite a lengthy list of those involved in the court case. Introduction, fateful handshake, capitulation, as they say, of France in 1940, signed made infamously in the same railway carriage where Germany signed the armistice at the end of the First World War. And here we have that handshake. And essentially part of this sort of some of the historical kind of stance that we have, certainly in from a British point of view, is not necessarily with this period we have the defence of France, the heroic defence of France, followed by the fall of France and then Dunkirk, of course heroic with the evacuation of the troops by the little boats. And then not really kind of talking about the government under Pétain and the Vichy regime very much, except really as basically the Allied forces' involvement in it through the SOE and the Maquis and the resistance, and then obviously you have the D-Day landings and the invasion of France. So that's really how we kind of view the history. We don't talk very much about this period. And again, I think that's the point of the book, that we don't, and sort of like to a certain extent, France doesn't, because it's a difficult period to talk about. Rather in this book, we do have sort of like, instead of a long list of sections of photographs, they're woven into the book itself. We have sort of like newspaper excerpts, what people would have been reading and seeing in their daily newspapers, because that would have been vitally important for people to learn about the trial. We even have a plan of the courtroom and so on. And then we have things like, the juries are responsible for threatening tract, giving the names and addresses of the jurors so that if they commit to injustice, you know who to blame. And this is how divided France would have been in reaction to, and this is evidence of how divided France was in reaction to the trial of Pétain. And you can see parallels of it in the modern day to some extent. If you want to draw parallels between Pétain and Trump, in the sense that he's being put on trial, and that's like Trump himself, that's a divisive act, and the jurors are sort of like, whenever they'll be selected, are likely to be targeted by one side or the other, and so on. Now, I'm not saying that Trump has committed war crimes or anything like that, or been partial to. I'm saying there are parallels. Before anyone wants to say, I'm equating Trump to Pétain, I'm saying there are parallels between the two trials. So that's interesting, and I don't think that's a parallel that, of course, that Jackson is going to draw, because he's going to focus upon the history. And I think sort of like, there is the other thing to talk about this book is its examination also essentially of France's recovery following the Second World War. We have plenty of stories out here about the recovery of Britain and the establishment of things like the welfare state and so on, and continuing rationing until into the early 50s, which my parents can remember, and so on. So again, it's really to explore a period that I don't know very much about and wanted to read, and sort of like that looks like an interesting book to read. So yeah, I look forward to reading this, France on Trial by Julian Jackson. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you have, then please do click on the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings of the Nook, where you'll see me out here with a box containing a book or game, which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea, then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching. We'll be back again soon with another unboxing in the Nook. Bye for now.